Welcome, everyone. Really glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you. We are going to be talking about exploring your creativity through photography. And my name is Zach Hodges. Um, I work at VSCO, obviously. And I'll just tell you a little bit about me so you know who you're listening to. um, I have been into photography for a really long time. We had a family friend actually who was a professional photographer, and I remember going into his like dark room and loving all of that. And I got my first camera in fifth grade. I think I was about 10 or 11. Asked my grandma, like all of my Christmas was like this one camera, and I actually went and found it on eBay recently because I really wanted to like see it again. It's not the same one. It's not exactly the same one, but it's like the same exact model of camera from like 1993 or something. But kind of dabbled in it for a long time. But then in my early 20s, I got really into it seriously and ended up doing it professionally for several years, and wound up helping working with some other friends to create some Lightroom presets and get this little company started, which ended up becoming VSCO, and the Lightroom presets became VSCO Film, and that turned into a mobile app, and I found myself creating presets and filters on a mobile app, and that kind of dove me into the whole world of image processing and color science and all these really interesting things. And that's what I've been doing for about 10 years. So um, it's been a really interesting ride. I've learned a lot of things. I love just learning and gathering information and understanding all this stuff. So hopefully I can pass along some useful things to you all. Um, Before we get into talking about editing, I did want to talk real quick about just the importance of capture, like bringing the best photos that you can into editing. If if you're coming into editing to fix a problem, your experience is going to be uh, lot less fun, and the results are not going to look as good. Whereas if you spend a little bit of extra time with like your lighting, with your composition, and then you go to edit, the results are going to be dramatically better. So just thinking about lighting and like, I know we've probably got all different kind of levels of people, but one of the most basic things I see people struggling with is just not really thinking about where the light's coming from. So like if you're outside, look where the sun is, right? And generally we want the light to be hitting the thing that we're hitting, or the thing that we're taking a picture of, whether it's a person, um, some kind of object, whatever. So, a couple good examples. Here's one. The light is hitting the person. It's lit really well. If we edit this one, it's going to come out looking awesome. But these rules are definitely meant to be broken. And there's a lot of good examples of, you know, using lights in interesting ways. So this one, the face is actually a silhouette, which is really cool. The light is hitting the back of them. Or this one? The light is purposefully hitting half their face. Like if you did this accidentally, you'd be real bummed. But as a like on purpose, um, creative lighting instrument, it's really really cool. So think about where the light is coming from, and in general, try to get wherever the light is, try to get it hitting the thing. So if you're taking a picture with your friends and there's a window behind you, just turn around. Get the window light on you. Like right now, there's a window right there, and that's hitting my face, which hopefully makes the Zoom video look pretty decent. Whereas if we were turned around, you would have a white blob behind me, and I would be a kind of a black silhouette. So just getting the light in front of your subject, like that's huge. That'll make your job as an editor so much better. And then also composition, just thinking about what's in the frame. Like composition just means taking the whole 360-degree world that we have and cropping all of it out into a tiny little rectangle. Like your video or your photo is excluding everything in the world except for what's in that little box. And how you include things, how you exclude things, and how you arrange them in that little box, that's composition. And if lighting's bad, we can kind of mess with that in editing. But if composition's bad, There's not a whole lot we can do in editing. It's real tough. Um, and so a lot of times this is just like thinking real quick, like, is there some kind of distracting thing? Like, is there a sign or a light pole or a person walking by or whatever? You know, like sometimes just like moving a little bit to the side or down can create a more interesting angle or just exclude some annoying things out of the image. And just sometimes just taking a couple steps in one direction or the other can dramatically improve the photo in ways that editing never could. So think about your lighting, your composition. I'm not going to talk about those things here, but I couldn't resist the urge to mention that because those are like the most important things uh, that will make your life as an editor so much better. But then getting into editing, um, one of the things that I always try to encourage people to think about is um, editing is primarily something that we're going to be doing for the expression, for the mood of the photo. There are times when we need to correct something that's wrong, but I think when people first start getting into editing, into photography and videography, they're doing research, they're reading blogs and everything, and there's all these opinions out there, and it's easy to feel like there is a right way and a wrong way to do these things. And the truth is that there really isn't. It's purely just your vision, your expression, and for every rule, there is a great example of somebody making something awesome, breaking that rule. So even the things that I'm going to say today, take it with a grain of salt and find your own thing. You know, all art, whether it's photography, videography, dance, painting, music, whatever, it's at the core, it's just communication, right? It's you as the creative trying to convey some sort of feeling, emotion, uh, message to your viewer or to your watcher or whatever. And there's really you don't need to worry so much about like reality or getting it right, unless that's important to what you're trying to get across. But generally, when we're editing, the picture already looks real-ish, and we're trying to make it less real to get something across, to convey some sort of feeling, emotion, message, that kind of thing. So that's what I mean. We're editing for mood, for expression. We're not really editing for reality, because gosh, if you get into color science and like the way we see and everything, it's a real moving target anyways. I won't get into that unless people are interested. Which, by the way, if you have a question, if you want to talk about something, please mention it in the chat. Raise your hand. I want this to be interactive. This doesn't need to be a monologue of me. So yeah, let me know if you have any thoughts. Oh, thank you. Yeah, some of these are my images, but most of these ones that you're seeing right here are not. A lot of my personal images now that are like on my phone, easy for me to get to, are pretty much just like my kids and my family and stuff, especially in the pandemic. So I didn't want to subject you all to too much of that. Some of these are my like random images from the last month or two, but a lot of these are just super sweet images that we've gathered over the years, and figured you'd want to look at those probably more than my children. All right, so okay, as we're thinking about editing, one of the really interesting things to understand is that we import all of our kind of understandings of the world and our shared life experience into our editing. So, for instance, we all experience the sun going up and down every day, right? And so brightness is something that is a big part of our life experience. So in the middle of the afternoon, it's really bright. Typically, you're working, you're doing something very active, and so we tend to have associations with brightness being energetic, maybe happy, lots of movement, things like that. Whereas if you think about the end of the day, when it's getting darker, maybe the sun's starting to go down, or maybe it's nighttime, we tend to kind of associate that with like calmer, more relaxed, maybe even depressed or scary or sad. Those things are also tied in with darkness. But my point is, we have, you know, life experiences tied to darkness, brightness, warm colors, cool colors, high contrast, low contrast, all of these are things that we experience in our lives naturally. And so by imparting some of that into your image, you can really kind of change what you're communicating, what you're making your viewer feel and see. So for instance, this image, if I make it really dark, it kind of feels like it's the end of the day, it's chill, maybe it's like you're feeling almost subconsciously like it's a little bit cold or it's starting to cool down. You feel kind of mellow and relaxed looking at this. Whereas if I brighten it up, now it's the middle of the day, it's probably hot. Um, I think of like, oh, I must be walking. Like you start to feel more active kind of emotions. And so literally just changing the brightness can really affect the mood, the kind of the feeling that you place into the mind of the person that's viewing your image. So just being mindful of your own kind of feelings throughout the day and the way that they correlate to these things, because all of this is tied. Well, most of it is tied to our own eyes, our own life experience. Um, yeah, so there's plenty other things besides brightness to talk about, but I won't bore you all with that too much. Um, as far as where to start, I think a lot of people, they come in and they're a little bit paralyzed about like, what do I do first? What's the right way to do it? How do I pick the right preset? And again, there's really no right or wrong way. It's just styles. Um, Broadly speaking, I would say there's two categories of editing. There is corrective editing, where you're just fixing a problem. Maybe the lighting was bad and you're trying to like make it so you can see a person's face, or you accidentally took the picture sideways and you're trying to fix that. Those things can be expressive, but they're not that interesting. Whereas expressive editing is a lot more, of these things that I'm talking about with, um, we're trying to kind of change the image to have more of some sort of an emotion. Um, and maybe it's not really corrective. Maybe the image is perfectly technically sound and we're just sort of trying to massage it to give it more feeling. So that's expressive editing. And some people start with one or the other. Some people kind of do them all at the same time. There's really no right or wrong way, but I'll kind of explain some of that as we're going through and we'll look at that. So just to get you started, I would definitely recommend just scrolling through some of our filters. A good way to think about this is almost as if you're wanting to change your own personal wardrobe. And you go into the store and there's all these clothes on racks and trying to figure out which ones you want to do. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to pick a bunch of things out that you think and you're going to go to the dressing room and try them on and look in the mirror and see if you like it. We're going to do the same thing. That's all you got to do. We're just going to try on some outfits. We're going to try some things, see how they look. So I'll literally start with this first preset. It's all right. Ooh, I don't like that one. It's pretty cool. I'm going to use this favorites feature to kind of like flag this one just by holding down on that preset and then swiping up. I can favorite that. Now if I go over to the favorites, I'm going to see that preset there. So I'm going to use that to just sort of flag the ones that I like. And I'll speak to what I like about it too, because I think sometimes it's hard to know why you like what you like, and try to help unpack that a little bit. So in this one, compared to the original, the colors are brighter, but there's like this extra dimension of warm and cool that's being kind of pulled out a little harder. So like the blues are more blue. Sorry, hold on, I lost my chat. I'm sure I can see you all. There we go. The warm colors got warmer. They kind of moved away from each other, which creates color contrast, which looks gorgeous, right? So now compared to the original, which I'm just holding down, like holding down on the image, that makes it kind of go back and forth. What used to be kind of like a grayish color is now this deep blue and this kind of rich orangish pinkish color. And on the color wheel, those are on opposite sides, and that creates color contrast. That looks great. So that's a big part of why this one looks nice. Skip ahead. Oh, let's try a really cool look. It's all right, not as much color contrast, but pretty neat. FV5. This one looks great. I like this a lot, so maybe I'll flag that. Anyways, you do that, um, and then maybe then if you find one that you like, you move into the tools. Something real quick I will say about the filters. They are, I think some people come in thinking that the filters are basically just different combinations of the tools, and they are not. They are totally separate. Um, they're built with all kinds of complicated desktop software. They're not looks that you could ever make with the tools. So the whole design is that they're complementary. Um, that's a great question. Some of the presets are kind of the same. How do you decide which one, or do you just try everything first? That's a great question. Let me pull up another image just to kind of keep it fresh. Let's go here. All right. Yeah, there's a lot of presets. No shame in that. There's a ton of these things. How do you pick one? So there's a couple things I can say to that. First of all, there's other ways to look at them. I mean, the short answer is if you don't specifically know what look you're going for, you just got to try a bunch of outfits on, right? So you got to try some things. But there are some helpers that make this easier. So first of all, if you tap the preset icon itself, where there's the little dots underneath there, that'll bring up these different view modes. So I'm going to go to this one with the bigger thumbnails. This is a lot faster of a way to kind of scroll through them and see which ones I think might look good. You can kind of see it in a bigger format. So that's one. But then also above here are these kind of different categories. And so this can be really helpful too. Maybe I know that I'm really liking all of the warm presets, or I kind of want to see this like a little bit more orange or yellow or something. So that narrows it down a lot, and I can scroll through those and try those. Or maybe I like the vibrant ones. Even simpler though, we do have something called For This Photo, which is using machine learning to recognize what kind of photo it is. I imagine it's probably recognizing a landscape image, and then suggesting some photos that we think might be a good fit for this image. So C8. I really like that. That looks good. So this is a much narrower list, and that's the whole point of this, is just to help you kind of narrow that down. You certainly don't need to scroll through every single one. And there's a little bit of like what's that called? Choice anxiety or something like that, where you feel like you have to go through every single one. You certainly don't. Like if you find one that you like, you could be done. That's fine. That's the whole point of it. As far as when they look similar, like I'm guessing these two are going to look similar. Yeah, it's like a slight difference in the color of the shadows, but certain image types aren't going to show the differences as well. So like if it's a preset that's built for portraits, and the main differences are in that kind of like orange hue slice of the pie, but your image doesn't have any oranges, you might not see a lot of differences. So if you're concerned about which one to pick, maybe just don't worry about it. Or if you're trying to get to know the presets, try a different image and compare the presets with a different type of image. You may see some differences that you didn't see on a similar image. Yeah, Yudin said, sometimes it really bothers me when you decide one, but then you think you have to try the rest. Yeah, for sure. And that, some of that's just our own different personalities too. There's some of us that feel like we need to try every one. There's sort of that like fear of missing out. Like, well, what if there's a better one over there? So if you want to do that, using that that favorites feature can really help you to pull out the ones that you like, and then once you go through the whole list, if you do that, then you can kind of narrow it down to like just the ones that you favorited, and then find the one. So if you want to do that whole kind of funnel experience, you certainly can, but you don't have to. Is that helpful? Actually, I'll pause here. Does anybody else have any questions, comments? I want to make sure this is useful. Kate, what's up? All right. Well, I'll keep going here. So after we've tried on some outfits, chosen an image that or a filter that we like, um, which by the way, some people don't use filters. You don't need to use filters, but that it's a it's a great starting point. It's a good kind of inspiration point. Oh, and one thing I'll say too, they all have a strength slider. So maybe you like an aspect of a filter, but it's a little too strong for you. Like maybe this one, you're like, oh yes, this looks great, but I wish it wasn't so blue. You can turn it down a little bit and just get a little bit of blue. And something I'll be coming back to a lot is this idea of extremes. It's really good to try the extremes of all the tools of anything that you're messing with, um, because you may not until you see all super blue um, on your image or high contrast or something. You may not realize that it could look that way, and then once you try it out, it might be something that you like that you didn't realize that you liked. But there's also this effect of kind of resetting our eyes. Our eyes have kind of a memory, and sometimes when you just jolt that memory by changing the image dramatically, it helps you to see it in a new way and give you a different perspective that can actually inspire other looks that you hadn't thought of. Let me go find here. Let's go back. I really liked the way that C8 looked on this one. That one or that one? Yeah. So I really like this one because it's making the sky a little bit more blue, but then it's also making those rocks a little bit more orange, and it's creating some subtle color contrast that I really like that. Oh, let's see. Kyle is asking, can you explain the preset categories for image types? Yes. How did VSCO determine what presets look good on portraits versus landscape versus urban? Yeah. Okay. So, besides warm and cool and some of those kinds of categories, there is also some categories for portrait, nature, and urban photos. Just real broad categories. And the general thinking there, portrait is obviously going to be concerned with people looking good in the image. So skin tone is definitely a big consideration there, but also complementary colors. So skin, everybody's skin of all races, if you just plot it out on a hue color wheel, we all fall in the pretty narrow little range of orange. Different brightnesses and kind of saturations of orange. But as far as hue goes, it's all pretty much in the orange region. And so that means that complementary colors to orange are somewhere in the blue, teal, even green kind of realm. And so sometimes by accenting blue colors, or teal colors or green colors, kind of pulling those more towards blue so that it creates that color contrast with orange, can look really good. So presets that do that while preserving skin tone and making sure that people don't turn like red or green or blue or anything like that, those are going to be in the portrait category. Whereas like a nature category, that's going to be untethered to skin tone. So we don't need to worry about people turning weird colors. And a lot of nature has, beautiful oranges and yellows in it, like a canyon or like a field of, golden wheat or something. And we can make more dramatic adjustments to colors like that would look really weird on people, but for a nature preset, it would look really good. And we can push the colors a lot farther too and make a nature image look really cool. And then urban, those are generally going to be a little bit more muted colors. So much of urban imagery is concrete and streets and buildings, and so a lot of times like the tonality and the texture is one of the more important aspects of urban images, rather than skin tone or really bright colors. So again, this is sort of our opinions built into some of these categories, and they're meant to help you, but by no means are they prescriptive. I actually was hesitant for us to do this when we did it, because I really like people to just come up with their own ideas. Like, you may like super bright, colorful urban images, and that's great. Or you may like really desaturated nature images, and that's great. Like these are all just styles and opinions, like I was talking about earlier. So use these as a guide, as a helpful tool, but um, break the rules, please. break the boundaries. Um, that was a great question, Kyle. Thank you. Um, if anybody else has questions, I just saw Kathleen join us. Thank you. Feel free to ask a question in the chat or raise your hand, and you can just say it out loud. But barring any other questions, I will continue on. So let's see. Let's look at the tools a little bit. I think I've got C8 pulled up here, and I'm gonna check the strength on that one. This image is, technically it's really good, but it's a little bit bland. The colors are all kind of bland. I mean, it's a cloudy day. So I'm going to leave this one on full strength just because I feel like it kind of needs it. And then let's look at the tools a little bit. So let me kind of show you again this concept of extremes. So I'll pull up, like, the exposure tool is a super basic tool, helps us to adjust brightness, and it's really useful to just see the extremes, right? So the bright side looks terrible. I would not use that. But the dark side, like, had I just started adjusting, I probably would have stayed pretty conservative, but like going all the way to the bottom there, that actually looks really cool. That darkness makes it look like very foreboding, like there's a storm coming and it's scary. Whereas like up here, it's more of just like, oh, it's a pretty lighthouse. So seeing that, kind of trying on that outfit, makes me realize, ooh, there's a cool possibility there that I hadn't originally envisioned. That's pretty cool. And if I wanted to, I could keep that going. Maybe I boost the contrast. Again, I'll do the same thing. I'll try extremes. Probably that's too much, but a little bit of contrast is cool. And let's mess with saturation, the colorfulness of the colors. If we take that down, ooh, now it's like, less color. It's more dramatic. It's more scary, more cinematic. Whereas if we boost the color, it looks kind of artificial and starting to look a little bit more pretty. So if we're going for like a foreboding, scary effect, less color is pretty cool. But this is the thing, is you can just try on kind of different accessories, if you will, to your outfit of a preset and customize it to what you like. Like that's really kind of the intent with these tools. Let me try something else. Oh, by the way, I just double tapped the slider. That sets it back to 0. So you don't have to like try to move your thumb like back to 0. It's kind of hard sometimes. So if you just double tap it, it'll go straight to 0. So let's look at something a little less extreme. I am going to pull this down a little bit just to kind of get some more texture out of the clouds and the lighthouse. But maybe I don't want to make a scary lighthouse. So I'm gonna look at just the crop. This is actually one of the most powerful tools, and it's very much in the kind of corrective editing category. It's not one that you think about as far as like expressive things. Oh, sorry, Sarah, I see your question, and I will get right back to that. But it can really change the way a photo kind of presents itself. So, for instance, this is a lighthouse, it's vertical. If we wanted to kind of emphasize the height, we could make this a more narrow crop. So now the lighthouse seems to be kind of like the whole image is sort of pointing to the height, and we could even extend that further with like a 9:16 crop. So now it's like it's a really tall crop, and the lighthouse is like looming a lot higher in the frame, whereas back here with the original, it's not quite so impressive. So maybe we want to do that. We'll make it a 9:16, and that's a good change. Before I move on, let me answer your question, Sarah. Oh yeah, okay. I love talking about the film presets. These are kind of my baby. Let's go look at the film presets. Actually, I'm going to save a draft here. Um, I'm going to correct the brightness a little bit before I apply the presets, just so that the presets look right. Oh, by the way, it doesn't matter what order you apply filters or tools. We actually handle the ordering of how things are rendered so that they always look their best. So you can do it in whatever order you like. That's what I was uh, just doing. Okay, so the film presets. If you notice as you're scrolling through the preset tray, most of the presets have a color background and a white letters, right? But then at the very beginning, not alphabetically ordered, are all of these presets with a white background and then colored letters. So those are what we call Film X presets. They are something that we worked on for many years. They are physical models of film through a process that we developed with a color scientists who was on staff with us for a long time. And essentially, we take a film, load it into a film camera. We have this. There's articles online that we've talked about this in greater detail, but there's a room where the walls and the floor and everything is black, and then we have special kind of like measurement instruments in there. We take these different images with the film, basically to plot out the color sensitivity of the film, the spectral sensitivity, and then we create a model of the spectral sensitivity of the light hitting the film, and then we develop the film, and we also create a model of the resulting dyes that get created by the different wavelengths of light that hit the film. And then obviously that has to get scanned, and so there's also a model of the scanner, and then all of those are combined into this preset that models sort of like if you were to if you had pointed a film at the same light that hit the digital camera, this is a model of what that would have created. And these presets are special in that they have a few extra controls because of kind of the nature of them. So if we tap into this, all the presets have a strength control, which just models or just turns the preset up or down. But the Film X presets also have character. And character was the best word we could come up with to describe what happens when you over and underexpose film. So many people that shoot film will purposefully overexpose it by one or two stops to get more contrast, more color out of it. And you'll see that happen as you push it to the right. So this is a Agfa Ultra 100. This is kind of a little bit of a weird film, but as you push it to the right, the contrast increases, but the highlights also start to turn pink because that happens with the film. Whereas as you go to the left, this one's actually not, this image doesn't demonstrate it very well. Hold on. Let's go here. Actually, this one might be good. Can we do this one? There we go. Okay, so let's go over to, I don't know, KP3, KP4. Actually, I like KP5. Okay, so to the right, we get more saturation in the reds, in the oranges, whereas to the left, we see contrast decreasing, kind of a fade happening, the saturation goes down. So these are all separate models of different exposures of film, and that's baked into this slider. And then the warmth control is essentially the scanner. We modeled a Fuji, what is it, SP3000. Oh man, Kyle, you probably remember the name. I can't believe I'm forgetting this. Anyways, there's like a Fuji scanner that everybody's in love with. And we got several of those and modeled them. Frontier, that's it. So film is white balance for daylight. You can't change the white balance of film. And in order to compensate for varying light conditions, what they do is they change the balance of the RGB channels or the CMY channels on the scanner as they're creating your digital file. And the lab handles this for you usually, but we thought it would be cool to give our users a little bit of a handle on that. And so as you're moving the warmth control, This is modeling the changes that you can make in the scanner to white balance your film. And some of the effects can be really cool. So sometimes you can combine these. Like let's say you want a little bit warmer of a shot, but then now it's like, you like the contrast and the color, but it's too warm. So maybe we pull back the warmth a little bit. And now we've got this cool color contrast again with like really saturated oranges, but then this kind of blue tone and everything that creates a much more dynamic image than what we started with. Um, so that can be fun. And you can see the real names of the films um, if you just tap into them. So like, KT32 is Kodak T-Max 3200. We are not associated with any of these companies. These are just to help you understand what they are um, referring to. But that is the FilmX presets. Does that answer your questions? Is that helpful? Kathleen and Sarah? Yeah? Okay, I'm gonna assume yes. So let me go back to our lighthouse image that I was working on. Good, good. Yeah, those are fun. It was quite a process to get those out the door. It took like 3 years, which was about 2 years and 6 months longer than we thought it would take. But I'm really happy with how it came out. Okay, so let's see how we can explore this one some more. The next thing I want to look at is the saturation. Like this is dealing with sort of how colorful the colors are. So to the left, and we already looked at this one. To the left, the colors get duller. To the right, they get more vibrant. Now, all the way to the right, it's helpful to see both extremes. Actually, I'm somebody that likes really colorful images, so I actually don't even mind all the way to the right, but it is a little much. So somewhere there in the middle is kind of cool. I would go with that personally. But I would like to see a little bit more drama in those skies. We're kind of losing some of the detail in there. And so the tone tool here, this is going to give us direct control over the highlights and the shadows. And so by pulling this down, you can see I can kind of bring detail back into those brighter areas. And I really like how that looks. Shadows are pretty good, so I'm going to leave those where they are. I'm also starting to feel like this is a little bit dark, so I'm just going to go brighten it back up just a tad. Actually, just back to 0. Okay, and then I want to see even a little bit more drama in these guys. So I'm going to open up the HSL tool. And I forgot to mention, many of the things that I'm dealing with here, including the film presets, are something that you can get through our membership. So if you want to experiment with these, you can sign up for a trial. I believe it's a 7-day trial. And then you can sign up for a yearly membership for, I think it's around $20 in most countries, US. And so things like the HSL tool, all the FilmX presets that I was talking about, and really all the other filters and presets in here all come with the membership. You do get a smaller selection of presets with the free version, and that can certainly help you get started. And a lot of these tools are available in the free version, but some of the more interesting ones like the blur tool, the text tool, the HSL tool, things like that, you'll need the membership for. So HSL, this is a really interesting one. It's probably our most complicated tool. What you see on the bottom is a bunch of different colors, and then you have controls for hue, saturation, and lightness, hence HSL. And hue is talking about, in our color wheel, moving those colors either to the left or to the right. So like for actually, let's go to the blues. For the blues, it's going to be more purple on one end or more kind of teal on the other end. Saturation is the same as the saturation tool. It's just specific to that color. So this is going to make only the blues more or less colorful. And then lightness is getting into the kind of the brightness or the lightness of that color. As you study color, it's very interesting. lightness and color are very much connected. You can't imagine a really saturated white because white has no color in a sense. And same with black. You can't really, like, there's no such thing as a really saturated black because there is no color of black. Um, so if you imagine color as like a cone or two cones, imagine like two funnels with the big ends attached to each other, and then it gets smaller towards the top. The middle, that ring kind of in the middle, that's all the most saturated colors, red, green, blue, purple, all that. And then as they move up, they get brighter all the way towards white, where they have no color at all. And then as they move down, they move towards black, where they again have no color at all. So we are looking at sort of that, like a slice of that middle part of all the brightest colors around the edge. And as we move the lightness, we're moving, blue like up towards white or down towards black. And so it will get less saturated because we're moving it away from the main color, but then you can sort of compensate that with saturation slider. So like I want to make these skies more dramatic. So the saturation does that, but it gets a little cartoony maybe. So I'm going to try pulling the lightness down. Let's just go all the way just to kind of see what it could look like. Yeah, that's a little too much, but like pretty far down is, I like that actually. And then just a little bit of a boost on the saturation. And now those skies are definitely popping more than they were. And while I'm here, the red of the top of the lighthouse, that's a really key part of this image. Red is such a powerful color, especially when there's just a little bit of it. And so I want to see if I can boost that a little bit more. So I'm going to boost the saturation of the reds. It's moving a little bit. I mean, it's already about as saturated as it can get. Let's see if a warmer or a cooler red could make much of a difference. I actually like a little bit of a warmer red there, because it accents with the blues nicely. And if I wanted to, these rocks are all kind of a shade of orange, I think. Oh, sometimes you may not be sure exactly what color something is as far as like what the computer thinks it is. And a really easy way to check is just to turn the saturation all the way down. Whatever color, whatever thing in the image changes, that's what's being targeted by that color. So I'm going to turn the saturation of the oranges all the way down. And see, it's not moving as much as I would have thought. So I'm going to go try the yellows. That's actually moving a little bit more. So clearly, these rocks are kind of like in between orange and yellow. So if I wanted to make those more dramatic, I could do something like that. Something like that. That's pretty cool. Let's call that good. One more little tip I'll throw in here is this split toning tool. So where the HSL tool is manipulating the colors that are already in the image, the split toning tool is kind of like adding a color on top of the image. And this works for video too. All of these do. So I'm going to tint the shadows with a little bit of blue. And you can see there, especially in the rocks, in that kind of like darker area where it's black, you can see it's turning from just sort of a dark brown to sort of a blue. So a little bit of that can be sweet. And then on the highlights tint, I'm going to try adding a little bit of like a yellow here. Again, with color contrast. So now I've added sort of another layer of color contrast on top of the image with the bluer shadows and the yellower highlights. And it's, even though it's not changing the colors of the image itself, it's giving it kind of a different mood. So this is a real happy, real kind of, I don't know, warm mood. Whereas maybe if I wanted to give it a different feeling, like maybe more blue on both ends, a little bit more of a somber, quiet moment. You know, this is gonna change that a lot, and you know, give it a whole different feel. So you can experiment with this and kind of learn some of the different color associations that we have with different feelings. Like green, if you watch movies and pay attention, like the bad guy's lair is almost always really green, because, or like the Matrix movies, you know, is that everything's green in the matrix, because we associate green with kind of like unhealth or evil. Then also it can be, uh, growth and life too. Just has to do with the subject matter. But by, adding different colors on top of the image here, we can really give it dramatically different feels. Like I'm kind of warming this thing up with some red, and it's really taking on a much warmer, almost nostalgic kind of character. And so combining some of these tools with the filters and with the some of the other tools, you can really kind of make something. You're right. You're right, Kyle. It's very Wes Anderson. I love him. You can really kind of make something that speaks what you want to get across with your image, whether that's a happy moment or a somber moment or um, you know whatever you have in mind. All right, so we are going to be wrapping up in about 5 minutes. I want to make sure there's time for more questions. Anything else anyone had in mind? Anything I can address for anyone? No? No, we're good? All right, I'll hit one more image. Oh, this one. This is a good example of corrective editing. This image was shot through a window, and the details are all there, but it's really kind of blue, tealish. So just before I apply any presets, I'm going to go fix the white balance here. And again with the extreme. So I'm going to look all the way to the left. That's actually really cool in its own way. All the way to the right. Now it feels like a really sunny kind of day. But it still sort of has this green tint to it. And so messing with the tint slider, I can see that's definitely too green. But as I move it over to the right, even though it's like full strength, it actually looks fine. It looks, I think, really natural. And so I'm going to leave it there at full strength because like there's no, like I said at the beginning, there's really no right or wrong. It's just it has to do with what you want it to look like, what you want to get across. So really like don't mind the numbers, just mind what it looks like. So for me, this is actually looking about how I would want it to be, and then I might crop it to be kind of wider to really sort of emphasize that the width and kind of give it like an expansive kind of crop. And then maybe go try some presets. So let's see, I really like KE1. Ooh, that's pretty sweet. That's Ektar 100. Or even going here, let's go all the way to the end. There's this urban series here. Let's go check these out. These are different presets built for urban scenarios with different lighting. So this one's bright sun, which definitely is what this image is. Bright sun looks pretty good. This one's built for high sun. Overcast. This is what we're looking at right here, and this looks pretty good. It's definitely adding kind of like a blue flavor to the whole image, which gives it kind of a mellow feel, mellow mood, which suits kind of an overcast setting. Maybe not full strength, but a little bit of that looks pretty good. And maybe call that good. All right, I'm gonna start wrapping up there. Make sure there's time for any extra questions, but just want to say thank you all for coming. This has been great to edit images with you. Hope it was helpful, and we are hoping to do some more of these, maybe getting into some even more advanced topics. So thank you. Have a great day, and good luck with your editing.